Hi, I'm Matt, here in Michigan.
And I'm Randall here in Texas. Today, Matt and I are bringing you a flashback review going back to 2011 to look at Super 8. Super 8 stars Joel Courtney, Ellie Fanning, Riley Griffiths, Kyle Chandler, and Ron Eldard. It is written and directed by someone you may have heard of, J.J. Abrams. He's well known for television series like Lost, Alias, Felicity. He directed Mission Impossible 3, but let's be honest. He's most well known for making one pretty good Star Trek movie, one very bad Star Trek movie, and one okay Star Wars movie, and one very, very bad Star Wars movie. See our review, episode 9. It's an hour long. But before we get too far into this review of Super 8, make sure that you give this video a like if you like it, and you subscribe to the channel if you always want to see more, and ring the bell icon if you want to know when we're uploading new videos.
Now, in Super 8 the movie, not to be confused with Super 8 the motel hotel chain, a group of kids are filming a movie at a train station when a train derails, releasing an alien held captive by the US Air Force. They then try to rescue a member of their group who is taken by the alien. Super 8 had a $50 million budget but earned more than $260 million at the box office. It has received above average reviews from both critics and audiences. Alright, Randall. Super 8. I'm going to let you have the first go. What do you think about this movie?
I will start by saying retrospectively, I did not like this movie when it came out. I remember seeing it in theaters, being kind of excited for it, but really kind of coming away disappointed that it didn't really do anything for me. I didn't feel the nostalgia that they were going for, and I thought the story was kind of meh. But as the movie's aged, and as JJ's filmography has gotten more spotty, in my personal opinion, I look back much more fondly on Super 8 now as an example of, hey, look, if you put the right people around JJ, he actually can write and direct a fulfilling story and make a good movie that doesn't have to have a whole bunch of loose ends and just superfluous stuff and just tell a story. So I actually look on Super 8 as JJ's best film. I don't think he's made another film that is as complete and as well put together and the story actually works as he has done with Super 8. Star Trek 2009 might be pretty close, but those were characters that he didn't have to create. That's not exactly the same. Now, Matt, that's about as much praise as I generally give J.J. Abrams. So let me know if I'm being crazy. What did you think having rewatched Super 8?
Super 8, I kind of feel a bit the same as it did when I first watched it. To me, I think this movie is solid, real solid. Like, all the pieces I think are there for a really good movie. I think the story is good. Our actors are really good. We have good action sets. We got, everything that you need to make a really good movie. It's just missing that little bit of memorability, at least for me, to have this as a movie that I keep going back to. So generally, I think this is a movie that is good for a one viewing and enjoy it for that one viewing, but not one that I would go back to this film.
That's funny, because we just went back to this film.
And yet, my opinion on it is still the same.
Well, you know what? I've always viewed this film as JJ's love letter to Steven Spielberg, and having now looked into it more, into the backstory of it more, besides it just obviously being based on a lot of different Steven Spielberg things and having all of these overtones and maybe even straight pulled from Steven Spielberg film moments, I now look at it and say, oh yeah, well, obviously it was done through Amblin Entertainment and he worked directly with Steven Spielberg on this film. There's a part of me that's like, hey, I want to praise JJ for making a pretty good film one that doesn't have all these superfluous things in it. And then I find out that, well, he worked with Steven Spielberg directly on the story. And I'm like, oh, so how much of this was JJ and how much of this was Steven Spielberg saying, hey, let's rein this in and just tell a coherent story? I don't really know. I didn't look into it that deep. But it still has a lot of those Spielbergian moments in it. Is that a word? I made it. It's a word now. Spielbergian. That I enjoy. There's things in here where I'm like, okay, that's reminiscent of Jurassic Park. That's reminiscent of The Lost World. That's reminiscent of E.T., obviously being the big one. And those work for me, but I still don't feel like super, super attached to the characters like I do in Spielberg films. And that's what I think you're saying might be missing.
Randall, that's 100%. And I don't want to reiterate what you just said because I would just re-say everything that you just said. 100%. I agree. That was my initial feeling on this film too, and that's what my feeling is watching it again too. And I really want to know how much of it is, JJ kind of doing like a love letter to like Spielberg, his mentor and stuff, or it is, like Spielberg saying, hey, let's do this kind of thing. I'm actually of the feeling of it's probably more of like JJ doing kind of like a Spielberg film that kind of feels like Spielberg. And as you were saying, and that is what I was hitting to, it's missing that one little element, whatever it is of each of these Spielberg films that it's similar to, that makes those memorable, and this not that kind of a memorable film.
But I will give it some praise for one thing that it does, I think, better than one of its things that it's riffing off of, E.T. In E.T., audience grows accustomed to being with E.T. and the characters thereof and like growing close to them. And in this film, I can feel sympathy for the alien without the alien being on screen. The alien's hardly ever on screen in Super 8. It's only there for a little bit, but it doesn't matter because what we as humans and what the United States government and Air Force, military, whatever, puts it through, I can feel sympathy for him. I can feel something, for a creature that's not even really on screen because it's just told to me through other characters. And I actually think that that's a strength of this, making me feel something for a character who's kind of portrayed as a monster, who's barely on screen for all of 3 or 4 minutes. I think that's actually a strength. That's something that, you don't really get out of a Steven Spielberg film. You care for the things that are on screen in his movies, because he's so good at doing that usually. But Super 8 takes a different approach, and I'm okay with that, like slightly refresh approach.
Me, I'm kind of on the opposite. To me, I think like the alien stuff might actually be the weaker part of it. For me, I just kind of see it as the element that just kind of like driving things with like our characters forward and stuff too. It was interesting when I was reading a bit more in. I see, I read that basically JJ had ideas for like 2 movies in this. One, he wanted one with just like the kids, like making their own movie and stuff, which to me that feels kind of like more genuine to like a director, maybe like similar to like their real life experience. But he didn't think anyone would really want to like just see that movie in the theaters kind of thing. So that's why we have this, the other story with like the alien and everything going in this and woven in. And I think it does a decent enough job. I mean, it does help, move the movie forward and stuff, and it does add a lot of those like excitement elements and stuff. But to me, I think the strength of the film is more of like the kids creating their movie and everything. But yeah, I don't know how I'd feel if it was just that movie. I don't know that would work. I think it does work with this alien stuff, but for me, I find the strength more in like the kids making their film and stuff and the dynamic there than I really do about like the alien and the Air Force and the evacuation stuff.
I don't want to take away from the kids and the family dynamics that's going on there. Like the 2 fathers who are, at odds with each other over a tragic situation and driving all of these kids to do this crazy thing all at the same time. They don't really know what's going on. They're just trying to finish their film. All of that's interesting to watch. It's just not as interesting as the mystery for me unfolding of what's going on with the alien. That's all. I mean, yeah, if it had been its own film, it could have been its interesting own film on its own, but I don't know that it would make, $260 million. And Studios are looking at that, not, oh, is this an interesting, piece to make? Studios aren't doing that anymore.
And one thing, like we were talking about, like Spielberg films too, something that I feel kind of similar now with this, even though this came after, is kind of like Stranger Things. But I feel a little bit better with Stranger Things, even though I think that is probably hitting more on the nostalgia. I don't know that Super 8 is really trying to like punch you with the nostalgia as much as like Stranger Things is. Stranger Things definitely like, hey, remember this thing from like the late 70s, early 80s? Remember this thing from the late 70s, early 80s? This film isn't really going to do that as much. But I think one thing that I do like about Stranger Things over this, as well as the kids and stuff act in Super 8, I think they do an excellent job. I actually warm up a bit more to the Stranger Things kids. Maybe it's because it's in a show format and we get to know more about those kids and have a better connection with those kids than we do in like a shortened hour and a half or so, or nearly 2 hour movie. Maybe that's it, but to me that's one thing I have, I think, over on Stranger Things over like Super 8.
The obvious comparison, as weird as it is, given like how much time between Super 8 and Stranger Things passed, these two are kind of connected to each other in strange and odd ways. They don't have any producers or directors and everything that are the same, but they're kind of going after that same audience. They're going after the people who are nostalgic for the 80s or just kind of like that Spielberg feel. And Stranger Things absolutely does a better job of hitting that, even if, it gets a little tiring. Sometimes you're just like, all right, now, instead of banging me over there with nostalgia, tell your story. So I'm okay with Super 8 going the other route and not banging me over the head with nostalgia. Even though there's things in here that are here specifically for nostalgia purposes. Because, I mean, there's things, this movie takes place in 1979. How do I know that? Because on the TV, the 3 Mile Island accident is happening. I'm a nerd. Sorry. They don't specify it in any other way other than that's happening on the TV at one point. But anyways, there are things on there like the space shuttle is like got a cutaway on his wall, and I'm like, it's 1979. The space shuttle hasn't even flown yet, so I doubt he's got a cutaway poster. It's there just for nostalgia. But it doesn't do the same job that Stranger Things does. It doesn't smash you over the head with the nostalgia and say, hey, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. Nope, it's just kind of there, basically, in the background. Now, of course, though, all of that aside, it's still a J.J. Abrams film, so lens flares, obviously. But, okay, not lens flares. Big bombastic stuff, okay? One of the things that J.J. Abrams is very well known for is making action sequences, big explosion stuff, not like Michael Bay, but, on a subdued but still crazy level. Even if it's unbelievable, man, that train crash in the beginning of this film is awesome.
Watch out! Joe, what the hell?
That is an excellent sequence with the kids all running around and everything kind of just blowing up around them, and you get explosions, and it's a really cool scene. And then at the end, all of the, even though they use the term misfire completely incorrectly, with the military, like all of the tanks, and I'm like, what are they shooting at? Doesn't matter. Explosions. Like those action sequences in an otherwise character-driven film are kind of weird and out of place, but they're so well done that they're entertaining to watch.
So I also think of that too, like when like the alien is at the gas station / convenience store, when the sheriff and stuff is there, and we see like the card, getting squished and flipped or whatever. To me, that also kind of feels a little bit off with like the tone of kind of like the story of like these kids and stuff and make their movie and all that kind of stuff too. But it does add to like that excitement and stuff of the film and stuff. So yeah, I guess I'm in that same part where I'm kind of like torn on it. Like, yes, it's enjoyable and it's fun and it adds to the movie, but at the same time too, I mean, it does kind of feel like we're doing two different movies here.
Well, I mean, we are. Okay? You already pointed it out. There are. I know it's been vehemently denied, and I don't even think this myself. I just know that it's like, when this came out, people were like, oh, it's got to be a Cloverfield sequel or a prequel or something like that, and it's not. I don't want to give anyone the impression it's not. But your movie monster looks an awful lot like Clover, okay? It just does. It's not a very original movie monster in comparison to Cloverfield, which looks very similar. And I can't help but think maybe that other movie actually was a Cloverfield prequel. Maybe.
Maybe it's a prequel to Spielberg's War of the Worlds.
I don't know. The technology's all wrong. At the end of the day, everything about Super 8 still works as a pretty good movie, and I don't necessarily go back and visit it like I do Spielberg films of my youth. I feel it's JJ's most complete film. It's probably his best original film, and instead of going out and doing crazy, bombastic, over-the-top, mysterious, loose-end everything films, maybe go back and get into that roots of your filmmaking and make a film like this again. That's my completely amateurish recommendation to J.J. Abrams.
Me, generally, I think this is a solid all-around movie. Like I said, I think this has all the elements of a really good movie, especially like the child cast. I mean, if the kids aren't as good as they are in this film, this isn't as good a film. I mean, I guess it's kind of redundant to say, but that's part of the big thing that works for me. When you're working with child actors, you have good child actors, it makes a big difference in a film, and I think this kind of nails it. This film just misses, I guess, that little bit extra that makes it, for me, one of those that I go back to or really have fond memories. But while watching it, I do enjoy watching this. Randall and I want to know what you guys think about Super 8. If you haven't checked it out in a while, we recommend you go check it out again and see if you feel any different about it. And if you do, let us know in the comments below what you thought about it. Also, be sure to check out some of our other reviews. We have other flashback movie reviews, new movie reviews. We take a look at TV shows. We don't just do movies. And we also have deeper dive discussions.
We also have a Facebook page, so make sure to go check us out over there if you haven't already. We post the day before on Facebook what's coming out next on YouTube. We also post stuff from other fandoms there, so you might get something there that you like. If you don't want to bother with us on Facebook, completely understand. Put us on your schedule. We release new videos every Monday and Thursday. For now, I'm Randall here in Texas. See everyone next time.
And I'm Matt here in Michigan. Lens flares and all. Have a good day, everyone. Next time on No Market Media. Please consider checking out some of our other videos.